What does it actually take to get a grade 9 in GCSE Maths and Science? Well, after teaching students for over a decade now, I've seen firsthand what separates students who are grade 9 from students at grade 6. Now, top students are not always the smartest, but they are the most strategic. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 successful traits that the highest achievers all have in common. And I'll show you what top students do so that you can start applying these habits to your GCSEs. Okay, let's jump straight into those traits. So starting with trait number 1. Now, the GCSE curriculum is massive and subjects such as the sciences and psychology are even more in depth. But even with that in mind, most students would rather react instead of plan for the best outcome. They revise based on their mood and how they're feeling, or just that last minute panic before the exam. What separates top students, on the other hand, is that they plan ahead like they are going on a journey. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, I want you to think of your GCSE experience as a journey and your exams as the end destination. So have a think about it like this. So imagine you were going on a journey and you were driving from, or your parents were driving from, say, London to Scotland. You wouldn't just jump into that car and go. You would plan for the journey. You would check tires, you would check brakes, fluids, oil, make sure that your wing mirrors is adjusted correctly. Take snacks, take your sat nav, so that you have a lovely smooth journey. And if you come across any problems, you can still easily navigate that. Well, exams are exactly the same thing. You need to plan to have a lovely smooth journey. You need to plan so that you know how much content you need to cover, what topics you need to cover, when to cover these topics, and how long it will take you to cover these topics. Once you have this plan in place, it's just going to make your GCSE journey so much smoother. Planning really stops procrastination before it even starts. So trait number 1 is top students plan like a pro. And I want you to make sure you're doing the same thing as well. Now, if you want to know exactly how to plan yourself for GCSE success, then you're going to want to download the GCSE revision planner that I'm going to put in the description down below. It would show you exactly how to plan yourself step by step, what topics you need to cover, how long you need to cover these topics. It has a fantastic template that you can download and fill in. All right, so on to trait number 2 for how to get grade 9 in GCSE Maths and Science, and what top students actually do is that top students are consistent but smart. Now, the word consistency can be a bit of a turn-off, right? It can sound mundane and boring and daunting as well, especially as a student, because you have a life. You don't want to be consistently learning and studying all the time. You want to spend time with friends and family and so on and so forth. So you don't want to be consistently studying. It's just boring. But here's the good news. Consistency does not mean 3 hours a night. It just means little and often. That's the key word there, little and often. So if you can be consistent in terms of your learning, in terms of your revision for 15 to 30 minutes a day on a focused topic, then that's amazing. That's all you need. That little and often approach is going to compound over time, just in the same way as athletes train in short bursts for their tournament. The most successful athletes don't just train a week before their tournament, their games, and do fantastic. They have been training in short mini bursts several years before that end destination. Okay. Now, one of the things that I want you to take from this consistency, though, is not just consistency with your revision, is also consistency in scheduling time for yourself. Because that's what's going to get you to continue to do what you need to do if you also have time for yourself. So as an example, if you say Friday night is going to be a chill night, when I come home from school, I'm too tired, I don't want to do anything, I'm just going to put my feet up and watch television, then do that. Schedule in your timetable, your calendar, whatever you use. And by the way, you'd learn some of that in that GCSE revision planner that I mentioned earlier about scheduling. Schedule it and stick to it, right? Because having time for yourself and work really helps you to balance that workload, and so you're less likely to give up halfway. So yeah, consistency is all about consistency in revising, but also consistency in time for yourself as well. Okay, trait number 3 is that they read ahead. Top students read ahead. Now, reading ahead, as you just me saying this to you probably sounds like a lot, right? But it's something that if you do well is really powerful method for getting ahead. So it's actually not a lot, and if you do it well, it's a powerful method for getting ahead. So how do you read ahead? What's the easiest way to read ahead? Well, you need to know what you need to learn. So you need to know the specification. And so you can have a look at go online, have a look at your syllabus to have an idea of what you need to learn. But your book is really good as well. Your student book is really good as well. So on your student book, you will see they're mostly in the top left-hand corner. It will say learning outcomes, or depending on the board and the book, it would say maybe progression questions. On that area, you'll find about 3 learning outcomes, right? So depending on what you're studying at that point in time, open up the book to that page and just choose about 1 to 2 learning outcome, even if it's just one that you want to focus on, right? And then open the book and read that page. So for instance, I'm just having a quick glance over here at my chemistry book under making salts. I can see that there's about 3 learning outcomes. And one of the learning outcomes is how to make pure dry samples of salt, right? That's the one I would go for because that's the main learning outcome. The other learning outcomes there is just about how acids react with alkali, which is basic, which is key stage 3, and you should know it. And if you don't know it, that's fine. You'll need to go over it. But identify those learning outcomes on that page. You just want to basically just scan that page, read that page. You're talking about a whole spread. It will take 1 to 2 pages, maybe 4 pages at maximum. And to be honest, with your books, half of it is just pictures anyway. So it really would only take you 5 to 10 minutes max. Now, what I want you to know is that at this stage, it's not about reading and understanding. That's not the goal of reading before your lesson. It's all about priming your brain so that when you go into your lesson, it would start to make sense. So because you've read your learning outcomes and you now know what the lesson's going to be about, and you'll have an idea of the topic you're covering in school because you can ask your teacher or you'll see what you've started to cover already. You now know what the topic is. You now know what the topic is going to be about. It means you're more likely to pay attention in your lesson. And it also means that when you don't understand something, you're more likely to put your hand up and ask your teacher and say, can you clarify that? So this one simple technique, reading before your lesson, is powerful because it's not just about reading, right? It's about processing the information, paying attention in class, asking questions in class. All of that comes from just reading. So it would really put you ahead of everybody else. So reading is really powerful. Reading is something that my generation used to do. This generation doesn't do that so much anymore, but it would really put you ahead. Okay, so on to trait number 4 of what top students actually do to get top grades. Now, most students will write everything. Top students write what matters the most. Now, what I find is that note-taking is something that I would say 80% of students do wrong. Why is it that students don't do note-taking properly? Well, they don't know what to take notes on. Simple, right? Because they haven't glanced at their specification beforehand. But they also don't know how to take notes for maximum benefit, for maximum retention. And so because of that, students just end up making notes on everything. So what's going to separate you, right? What do you need to do when it comes to taking notes? Well, that's where looking at the specification or the learning outcomes that I talked about earlier on, that's where that's going to come in handy, because once you've identified 1 to 2 key learning outcomes, then you know when I go into my lesson, that's what I'm going to take notes on. So in this book I was looking at here, we're talking about how to make salts. You know, when I go into my lesson, that's the key thing I want to focus on. I am going to focus on specifically, step by step, what is the process that I need to make salts. Remember that 80-20% rule. 20% of the most valuable content will give you 80% of your results. So when you're looking at your specification and you're looking at the learning outcomes, you are trying to identify those 20% of key content that you should focus on. And because you have checked the specification beforehand, your note taking will therefore hone in on that 20% of content. Okay, now you might want to learn a bit more about how to take notes effectively. I have done another video on that. I'm going to link that at the top of this video, or perhaps in the description down below. So trait number 4 is that top students take strategic notes, and I want you to start taking strategic notes too. And moving on to trait number 5. Now, when you take a step back with your GCSEs, as a wonderful experience as you get through your GCSE years from year 7 all the way to year 11, whether it's making friendships or organizational skills and so on and so forth, your GCSE exams don't really test you on all of those wonderful things that you learn throughout your secondary school years. Instead, what do they test you on? Exam technique. That's it. That one thing is exam technique. So you will be surprised then. I mean, it is surprising to me then of the amount of students who just don't practice past paper questions, because that's what you're going to get tested on, right? Just like the example that I gave earlier with athletes, if they're going to do some sort of 100 meters or 200 meters, well, that's what they are going to prepare and practice for, their 100 meters. They're not going to prepare and practice for swimming or not do that at all, okay? So top students don't just learn the content, they actually train from the test. Now, why is exam technique so important? Because exam technique is a skill in itself, but there's so many skills within exam technique. So if you practice past papers, you're going to gain all of these skills. You're going to be able to test your knowledge so you can identify where your gaps still are and areas that you need to improve on. You'll be building time management skills. You'll be learning what the question is asking. You'll be learning how to answer the question for maximum marks. And more importantly, as a result, you'll be building your confidence. So when you walk into that exam hall, exam questions, the exam is just easy peasy. And I think that students shy away from exam questions because it's going to show them up, right? Because they're afraid it will show them up. And it will show them that, oh, I'm not there yet. Oh, I'm not good at this topic. You know, I just don't know what I am doing, right? And they'll then use it as an identity to say, well, I'm just not good at science or whatever. But here's what I want you to take from this, and that's the phrase to fail forward, right? When you practice exam questions, you're failing forward. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things wrong. But when you come the next time and the next time and the next time, you're going to make that 1%, 2%, 10%, 20% increase, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to wait to be perfect before you start. You get perfect by practicing and making those mistakes. Okay, so strategy 5 is top students practice exam questions even when it's hard. Okay, so now you know what top students do to get grade 9. You're going to want to know some of those key high impact topics to actually get those top grades. And so you'll be interested in watching the video, revise these 3 maths topics before year 11. All right, that's it. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.